Hey guys, welcome to Through the Bible Verse by Verse, a plain and simple study through the entire Bible, book by book, chapter by chapter, and verse by verse. We are in Leviticus chapter 24, and we're kind of speeding our way through the end of the book of Leviticus. So, and these are just commands. Again, this is a operating manual for the priest. This is how the priest, this was their operating manual. This is what they used to administer, to make offerings, all of that stuff. So let's get into it. All right. Chapter 24, verse 1. The Lord spoke to Moses, command the Israelites to bring your pure oil from crushed olives for the light, in order to keep the lamps burning continual. To be the lamps within, at this stage, the tabernacle, the tent, later the temple. Verse 3, Aaron is to tend it continually from evening to morning before the Lord outside the veil of the testimony in the tent of the meeting. This is the permanent statute throughout your generation. So when they're not making offerings, you have to make sure that this fire continually going with the oil. Probably the best way to kind of describe it is, we would say, a lamp. Verse 4, he's continually tend the lamps on the pure gold lampstands in the Lord's presence. Take fine flour and bake it into 12 loaves. Each loaf is to be made of 4 quarts. Arrange them into 2 rows, 6 to a row. On the pure gold table for the Lord, place the pure frankincense near each row, so that it may serve as a memorial portion for the bread and fire offerings to the Lord. The bread is to be set out before the Lord every Sabbath day as the perpetual covenant obligations on the part of the Israelites. It belonged to Aaron and his sons, who are to eat it in the holy place, for it is the holiest portion for him from the fire offering to the Lord. This is a permanent rule. So this bread was to be before the Lord. The bread, of course, represents body, ultimately the body of Jesus. In this case, Aaron was to eat it. Unlike pagans who store food, no one ate the food. And by the way, later on, you're going to see when David, when he was on the run from Saul, he would go and actually eat this bread. The priest is going to give him this bread. Okay. But verse 10, now the son of an Israelite mother. I'm saying the son of an Israelite mother and an Egyptian father was among the Israelites. Now this was a mixed marriage. So apparently this Egyptian came out of Egypt at some point. Now, by the way, remember, we're only just a year. We're going into the second year, between the second and third year. Okay, so at some point, this Egyptian hooked up with these Israelites. They got married. They leave on the night of the Passover. Okay, so their son is half Egyptian and half Israelites. It says a fight broke out in the camp between the Israelites' woman's son and the Israelite son. Her son cursed and blasphemed the name, and they brought him to Moses. His mother's name was Shelamith, a daughter of Debri and of the tribe of Dan. And they put him in custody or jail until the Lord's decision could be made to clear him. And the Lord spoke to Moses, bring the one who has cursed to the outside of the camp, and have all who heard him lay their hands on his head. Then have the whole community stone him. Yes, this is rough. And tell the Israelites, if any man curses his God, he will bear the consequences of his sin. Whoever blasphemes the name of Yahweh is to be put to death. The whole community must stone him. If he blasphemes the name, he is to be put to death, whether a foreign resident or a native. Now, yes, you may think this is hard, but keep this in mind. This boy, as well as his Egyptian father, they saw all of the miracles of God, the parting of the plague on Egypt, the parting of the Red Sea, the pillar of fire by night, cloud by day. So remember, he sees all of this, and then he curses God. Okay, so in a sense, you can say that's why you don't have to feel sorry for him. He is sinning against God. All right. Verse 15, and tell the Israelites, if anyone curses God, he will bear the consequences of his sin. Whoever blasphemes the name of Yahweh is to be put to death. The whole community must stone him. If he blasphemes the name, he is to be put to death, whether a foreign resident or a native. If a man kills anyone, he must be put to death. Whoever kills an animal is to make restitution for it, a life for life. If a man inflicts a permanent injury on his neighbor, let me read this again, verse 19. If any man inflicts a permanent injury on his neighbor, whatever he has done, it is to be done to him. Fracture by fracture, eye by eye, tooth for tooth. Whatever injury he hath afflicted on the person, the same is to be inflicted on him. Now, so we see the whole thing of the testimony of the eye for an eye. We kind of understand this here. The context is that if you injure someone, it is to be done to you. And the idea too is not so much as an accident, but notice he said inflict, which carries the thought that, it was intentionally or recklessly. Okay? That if, so you put out his eye, your eye has to be put out. Verse 21, whoever kills an animal is to make restitution for it. Whoever kills a person is to be put to death. You are to have the same law for the foreign resident and the native, because I am Yahweh your God. Now remember, as we just seen, and we're not through with him yet. So remember, God just gave the instruction. Remember the Egyptian, half Egyptian son is in jail right now. So they have the instruction, and God is clarifying and even giving more instruction. Then he says, after Moses spoke to the Israelites, they brought the one who had cursed to the outside of the camp and stoned him. So the Israelites did as the Lord had commanded Moses. Now, like I say, it seemed like it is rough, but remember, the difference when a foreign person embraces the God of Abraham, he is under the same law, and that's the whole point right here. So in a sense, he's not innocent. In other words, it's not like he's, I didn't know the ways right here. And in his case, remember, he came out. He saw everything. All right, verse 25. It says, the Lord spoke to Moses on Mount Sinai, speak to the Israelites and tell them, when you enter the land I'm giving you, and the land will observe a Sabbath to the Lord. Now notice he said here, the land will observe a Sabbath. You may sow your field for 6 years, and you may prune your vineyard and gather its produce for 6 years. But there will be a Sabbath of complete rest for the land. In the 7th year, a Sabbath to the Lord. You are not to sow your fields or prune your vineyards. Verse 5. You are not to reap what grows by itself from your crops, or harvest the grapes of your unintended vines. It must be a year of complete rest for the land. Keep this in mind. Whatever the land produces during the Sabbath year can be food for you, for yourself, for your male, female slaves, and your hired hand and foreigner who stays with you. All of it all of its growth may serve as food for you, your livestock, and the wild animals in your land. You are to count 7 sabbatical years, 7 times 7 years, so that the time period of the 7th sabbatical year amounts to 49. Then you are to sound a trumpet loudly in the 7th month, and in the 10th day of the month you will sound it throughout your land on the day of atonement. Now, what's going to be important to know about this is that when the Israelites are judged during the time of the Babylonian exile, this is one of the reasons why God says they were judged. That they did not observe, did not give the land its Sabbath rest. And this is where God came up with the 70 years. So all of the times that they did not observe this 49 years and over almost 1,000 years of history, God says you owe the land 70 years of rest. And that is one of the reasons why they were out of the land for 70 years. Okay, when Nebuchadnezzar came and took the people out. Verse 10, he says, you are to consecrate the 50th year and proclaim it freedom in the land for all its inhabitants. It will be a year of jubilee, when each of you is to return his property, and each of you to his clan. The 50th year will be your jubilee, and you are not to sow, reap what grows by itself, or harvest its unintended vines. It is to be holy to you, because this is the jubilee, and you may only eat its produce directly from the field. So now, in addition to this, the year of jubilee was every 49 years. It was like every 49, every 50 years. It was a year of setting free everything, and that he's going to explain. You had to give back property, give back land. If you were an indentured servant, you went free. 13. In the year of jubilee, each of you will return his property. If you make a sale to your neighbor or purchase from him, do not cheat one another. You are to make the purchase from your neighbor based on the number of years since the last jubilee. He is to sell to you based on the number of remaining harvest years. You are to increase its price in proportion to the greater amount of years, inflation. And it says, and decrease its price in proportion to the lesser amount of years, because what he is selling to you is the number of harvests. You are not to cheat one another, but fear your God, for I am Yahweh your God. You are to keep my statutes and ordinances and carefully observe them, so that you may live securely in the land. Then the land will yield its fruit, so that you can eat and be satisfied and live securely in the land. Now, so the promise that God will be with them, the promise that God will, again, bless their land. So they didn't have to be greedy. The temptation was always in that year of harvest. Man, I'm letting all of this fruit go. The promise here is that God will bless them. Of course, they will not keep this anyway. Verse 20. If you wonder, so God said, okay, if you wonder, what will we eat in the 7th year if we don't sow or gather its produce? Now, here's the thing now. Remember, the greatest thing is they have God on their side. They have God blessing their land. Okay? Verse 21, I will appoint my blessing for you in the 6th year, so that it will produce a crop sufficient for 3 years. And when you sow in the 8th year, you will be eating from the previous harvest, and you'll be eating this until the 9th year when the harvest comes in. Now remember, he's saying that God is going to bless him so that, so you remember, you got this 7-year rest for the land. And then you have the Jubilee. But he says now in that 7th year, you are to let the land rest, okay? God is going to then bless. In the 6th year, He's going to give a bumper crop, and that will last them through to after that year, and then also what? After they begin to grow the fruits and the harvest again. All right. So, verse 23. The land is not to be permanently sold because it is mine, and you are only foreigners and temporary residents on my land. So, clears that up. In other words, the land of Israel itself was never to be sold to another country. Verse 24. You are to allow the redemption of any land you occupy. If your brother becomes destitute and sells part of his property, his nearest relative may come and redeem what his brother has sold. We're going to see some examples of this. Ruth, it's going to be the most prominent here. We're going to see also in the time of Elijah, when the widow woman who had to go away for 7 years, and she came back, and the king actually appointed her land back to her. He said, if a man has no family redeemer, but he prospers and obtain enough to redeem his land, he may calculate the years since the sale, repay the balance to the man he has sold it to, and return to his property. But if he cannot obtain it enough to repay him, what he sold will remain in the possession of the purchaser until the year of Jubilee. It is to be released at the Jubilee so that he may return to his property. So remember, the Jubilee period was every 50 years. Everything, all debts got canceled. If you were in jail, you went free. If you were the indentured servant, you went free. Jubilee was a year of freedom for everything, everyone. Verse 29. If a man sells a residence in a walled city, has a right of redemption, his right of redemption will last a year until a year has passed after its sale. His right of redemption will last a year. We have something like that with tax laws, by the way, what they call redemption. You should pay attention to that. Don't let your taxes get bought out. But you do have a year of redemption in most states. Verse 30. If it is not redeemed by the end of a full year, then the house in the walled city is permanently transferred to its purchaser throughout his generation. It is not to be released on Jubilee. By the way, one of the greatest, when it happened, and they do happens, is tax sales. And when people don't, okay, I don't want to get off into that. I'm getting so, but anyway, our tax law is kind of based upon this, is what I'm saying here. Verse 31. But the house in the village that has no walls around them are to be classified as open fields. The right to redeem such a house stays in effect, and they are to be released at the Jubilee. All right, I'm going to stop here, and I'm going to pick this up in the next study here at verse 32. And then I'm going to try to finish the book of Leviticus. Then we'll see. All right, guys. See you in the next study. All right. Come out of here. All right.